Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a database server in Microsoft Azure. I will connect to the database server by using a client software called MySQL Workbench, and then I will create a database, a table, and also insert some data into the table. I will also run some queries on the database to show the content of the table. I logged in into Azure portal and I am at the home screen. To create a database, I will go to create a resource menu, and then from the left side menu options I will select databases. There are different database servers available in Azure, such as PostgreSQL or MySQL or MSSQL. Also, there are non-relational databases such as Azure Cosmos DB. I'm going to create a MySQL database, so I select Azure database for MySQL. And I have two options, flexible server and single server. I'm going to choose a flexible server, so I select create in the flexible server area. I will select the resource group that I created before. I will give a name to the server. I will keep the region US East as the default and MySQL version 5.7. The cheapest option is the one that says for development and hobby project. If I select for a small or medium sized database, the cost will be higher, and for large databases, the cost will be even higher. I will select for development and hobby project. I will leave the availability zone as default, and for the administrator account, I will create an account. Then I go to the networking options. Here I want to connect to this database server from home, so I have to allow public access. For public access, I have to allow IP addresses in the firewall rules. I can add my own IP address, or I can add any IP from any network. You will see your own public IP on this screen. You can allow only your public IP through the firewall. In that case, you will select add current public IP. If you want to allow anyone in the world, then you need to add this option which says add 0.0.0.0 through 255.255.255.255. That means any IP from anywhere. If you do not allow any of this IP now, you can also modify that and add later. I'm going to add any IP for now. It's giving a warning saying that no IP addresses will be blocked. Any host on the internet will be able to access this server. I will continue. And then I will go to tags. I will not use any tag. Then I will go to review and create. On this screen is showing the summary of the instance that is going to be created. So I will click on create. It's going to take a few minutes to deploy this instance. The instance deployment process is complete. Now I can go to the resource. Here on the right side of the screen, it shows the server name. So I will be able to connect to this instance by using this name. I will copy the name in the clipboard. On the left side of the screen, there are different settings. You can change those settings. For example, in the networking, you can change the allowed IP addresses. You can see the existing databases in the databases menu. There are system created databases. You can add database from here. For example, I will add a test database and then save. The database was created and I can see the test database. I will work more on the database in the later part of the videos. There are other settings on the left side. Next, I'm gonna use a client software. So I will go to a new tab and then I will search download MySQL Workbench, and from the available result I will go to dev.mysql.com site. As I'm using a Windows machine, so I will select Microsoft Windows and then select download. If you are using a Mac machine, then from the drop down select Mac OS and then select download. Before installing MySQL Workbench, you might need to update your operating system. So when you attempt to install MySQL Workbench, it might prompt you to download update. If you're using an older machine, then you might not be able to work with the latest version of Workbench. In that case, you can download an older version of Workbench, and that is available in the archives. Depending on how old your machine is and the operating system you're using, you can choose an older version and then download that one. After you download the software, you need to install it, and you can keep all the default settings in the installation. Previously, I downloaded it and installed MySQL Workbench, so I'm gonna open the application. And here I will create a new connection. So I go to MySQL connection plus. In the connection name, I will use a name something like, in the host name, I will paste the name of the server that I copied from Azure. For the username, I will type in the username that I created when I created this database server. I can store the password in the vault, or I can supply the password when it's prompted. So I'll click on test connection to see that if I can connect. Now I'll give the password that I used when creating this user account. And I have the option to save the password in Vault. So the test connection was successful. I'll press on OK. And then this connection will be saved with this name. So I press OK. So this is the connection that will connect to this database server. Now I will connect. And it is connected. I can use SQL command here to carry on different operations. For example, to see the databases, I can use show databases. Every SQL statement should end with a semicolon, and then I can use this icon to execute. That shows the result here. The first four are the system created databases, and this is the one that I created through Azure interface. I'm gonna go back to Azure interface and select the databases and select the test database that I created, and I will delete it. The test database was deleted. Now I go back to MySQL Workbench and then execute this query once again. I expect that this test will not be here. Execute, and then the test database is not there anymore. If you have multiple SQL statements, every time you run this query, it will execute all of them. So I'm going to run one statement at a time. First, I will create a database. Now I will maximize this screen, and then I will create a database. And the name of the database I want to use is MyDB. Now I can execute this statement. At the bottom of the screen, it shows the result of the action, create my database, and there was a check mark. That means the database was created. To see the database, I will use show databases once again and then execute. Now it's showing that MyDB was created. As there can be many databases in your database server, to use any of them, you can use the statement use and then the database name and execute. Now I am in MyDB database. I will check the list of the tables in this database. So I will use show tables. And there are no table in the database as I have not created any. Next, I'm going to create a table into the database MyDB. So I will use create table, and the name of the table would be, and the table will have the fields ID of integer type and should not have a null value. That means I have to provide ID information for every student. And then let's say first name, the type is varchar 255 characters max, and then can be null. Similarly, last name varchar 255 can be null, and then let's say phone number varchar 10 character max null, cd varchar 255 character max can be null, and I will use ID as the primary key. No comma here, and then the bracket closed, semicolon. Now if I execute this SQL command, that will create the table named student in the database MyDB. So let's execute. The table creation was successful. If I execute this SQL command again, it will fail because the table already created. So I'll show you here. As you can see, it cannot create because the table student already exists. The name of the table is student, and these are the fields. So I'll remove this. Now I can show the content of the table, which is empty at this moment. I will use select command, select all from student. The table name was student. Students could be a better name anyway. So I will execute, and it's showing null. That means the table is completely empty. Now I will insert a new row. So I will use the insert into SQL statement, and then comes the table name, and then the list of the fields: ID, first name, last name, phone, city. These were the fields. Out of these 5 fields, ID was mandatory. When I defined ID, I said not null, and any other fields can be null. So when I insert a new student record, I must pass ID, but other fields can be optional. Then comes values, and then again bracket and all the values of these 5 fields. For ID, I will use 100. For first name, and then last name, and then phone, and city, and then I will close the bracket, semicolon. If there is an error in the SQL statement, it will show red underline. There are some other types of error that cannot be recognized. For example, if I make a mistake in typing the field name, it will not show the error here, but the query will fail, and it will show that the field is not found. Anyway, so let's execute. The query was unsuccessful, so there was some error. For example, here it says unknown column, first name. Here I made a mistake in typing the field name. I missed the letter S. I made the correction. Now I will execute once again, and then this time the query was successful. I will add another record. The next ID will be 101, and let's say another person, and let's say and I execute once again. So another record was added. I will add one more. And then execute. That record was also added. Now I inserted 3 records. To see the content of the table, or to show all content, I will use select all from the table name and execute. That shows all 3 records that I added into the table. I can run different queries. I can add many other tables. I can create a relational database with many different tables. The discussion of relational database is out of the scope of this video, so I will not go into the detail of how to design a relational database. To see the information of one specific user, I can choose the values of certain fields for that user. For example, if I want to see the user with ID 101, then I will write the query select all from student where ID equal, let's say, 101. When I execute this query, it will show the information of all records for the user with ID 101. So let's execute. It's showing the all columns of the user with ID 101. When I'm done, I can close MySQL Workbench. and then I will go to the overview page of the database. Here, if I want to use this database in near future, I will simply shut down the machine from stop menu. I'm not going to use this database server in near future, so I will completely remove it from my account. So I go to the delete option, and then I select the option I have read and understand that this server will be deleted, and then click on delete. Successfully deleted the server. If I go to home page, it still shows the database. If I refresh, it should go away. Alright, so the resource has been removed, and that is the end of this video. I hope you found this video was helpful. If you would like to receive notifications on future videos, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel and set up notifications by tapping on the bell. Thank you for watching.